Harvard Divinity School.
Words Surviving Siege and War, Poems from Gaza, March 21st, 2022.
Hello, my name is Shayma. I'd like to welcome you to this event, Words Surviving Siege and War, Poems from Gaza. So I'm the editor-in-chief of Peripheries, a literary and arts journal published out of the Center for the Study of World Religions at Harvard Divinity School. And this event is a reading of the folio from the last issue of Peripheries. Each year we invite guest editors to collate poems to a certain theme. These are poems that without those guest editors we would not have access to, or we wouldn't even know of. So last year I contacted Mosab Abu Toha to edit, he was then a visiting poet and scholar at risk at Harvard, and I invited Tayseer Abu Odeh to join him. We gave to collate a folio, special folio of poems on new poetry from Gaza, and we gave a deadline of May 2020 to get that collation to us. And we couldn't have known that this would correspond to last year's devastating siege of Gaza. So many of the poems you're about to hear today, they were written, translated, or edited during that period. And I think you'll hear they carry the urgency and the devastation of it. As we're heading now into Ramadan, the lunar anniversary also of last year's events, we wanted to invite the editors and the poets to read to us from that collection from last year's issue of Peripheries. Many of the poems you're going to hear are in Arabic. They will all be translated. If you have a hard copy of the journal, and I'll also link the digital copy so you can follow along, you'll see that we played with translation, sometimes retaining the Arabic in places, including difficult to translate terms. So you can think about this as you're listening to the translations for those who can't understand Arabic, and think about what the limits of translation is in a project like this. So I will link to the digital copy. You can also buy hard copies of the journal through Grolier, our lovely poetry bookshop, who are co-sponsoring this event. This event will go for 1 hour. If we have time at the end, there will be questions, but the questions that we don't get to, or if we don't get to questions at all, I will send them to the speakers, the readers, and the poets and editors. And also this event is being recorded for the archive at the Woodbury Poetry Room. So let me introduce Mosab, who was one of the guest editors of the collection, also himself a poet. He's a Palestinian poet, fiction writer and essayist from Gaza. He is the founder of the Edward Said Public Library. And in 2019 to 2020, as I said, he was a visiting poet and scholar at Harvard University. He gave talks and poetry readings at the University of Pennsylvania, at Temple University, and the University of Arizona with Noam Chomsky, and the 2020 American Library Association exhibits. His work has appeared in Poetry, The Nation, Benapal, Solstice, Arrowsmith, Markaz Review, The New Arab Al-Ayyam, Harvard Human Rights Journal, among others, including Peripheries. Mosab is the author of Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, Poems from Gaza, forthcoming from City Lights Books in April 2022. And I'll hand this over to Mosab now.
Many thanks, Shira. And many thanks to the Center for the Study of World Religions. It's my huge honor to be part of this event. So this special folio wouldn't exist without the space Peripheries Journal offered to us, or without the extraordinary and creative work of the poets included. All of the poets, as Shira mentioned in this folio, are refugees, and some of them were raised and still live in refugee camps in Gaza. Every poet has lost a family member, a friend, or a neighbor. Some have had their houses or workplaces destroyed, and all live in the nightmares of the never-ending waves of terror Between 2008 and 2021 alone, Gazans have been subjected to 4 extremely disproportionate attacks by Israel, with every assault claiming the lives of hundreds of civilians, mostly women and children. While one poet lives in exile, my colleague Tayseer Abu Odeh, most have never been able to leave Gaza because of the blockade. It's nearly impossible for a Gazan to secure a visa outside. 4 of the included poets in this collection were born after 1990. They were born just before the signing of the Oslo Accords in 1993 and the formation of the Palestinian Authority in 1994. They have watched Israeli helicopters firing rockets at cars and buildings. They have joined marchers carrying martyrs through the streets to the cemetery. They have lived the horrors and the devastating 2006 Israeli attack on Lebanon and Gaza, and then the 2008, the 2011, the 2014, and most recently the May 2001 attacks. Most of the poems in this collection were written, as Shira mentioned, during or after the May attacks this year. Finally, I would like to stress how essential it is to showcase the creative work of Gazan writers. From the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish until today, Palestinian poetry is the poetry of resistance and resilience, the poetry of searching for beauty buried under the rubble or beneath uprooted olive trees. Here, a beauty constellates with the political. The subjective I aligns with the collective we, and the aesthetic is freedom, as Darwish once put it. Gazan poets are an extension of all other poets in the world, from the east to the west, who translate into words the ever-present and continuing sigh let out by the first human in such a disturbed world. I would like to introduce our first poet. Nasser Rabah is a Palestinian poet and writer who was born in Gaza. He still lives there today, where he has published 5 poetry collections and 1 novel in Arabic. Some of his poetry has been translated into English and French, among other languages. Rabah is a member of the General Union of Palestinian Writers. Please, Nasser.
مساء الخير مصعب، مساء الخير جميع الزملاء. أعتقد الاسم شيلا يا مصعب.
شيرا بس لو سمحت تشغل الكاميرا.
شكرا يا مصعب. اوكي تمام. شكرا على التقديم مصعب، وشكرا لجميع الحضور. الآن سأقدم قصيدتين صغيرتين كتبتا أثناء الأحداث التي توالت على قطاع غزة. رسالة إلى الطيار الذي يعود إلى قاعدته بعد قصف غزة. إلى الطيار الذي يعود الآن إلى مدرج الموقع العسكري بعد قصف غزة، ربما تخلع الآن تلك الخوذة الثقيلة وتبتسم لمستقبليك. ربما يهنئونك بالعودة السالمة من المهمة الخطيرة، ولكنك الوحيد الذي يعرف الحقيقة، حقيقة ما فعلته. عار علي، عار عليك. يجب أن تضع التراب على رأسك وأن تبصق على وجهك في المرآة. هل هذا كل ما تعلمته؟ أن تقاتل البيوت والأرصفة دون مضادات أرضية لطائرتك المجهزة للمناورة والكر والفر، دون اشتباك جوي مع طائرات أخرى؟ اخجل من نفسك. وأنت تشاهد الآن على التلفاز صغارنا تحت الأنقاض يلوحون بإصبعي النصر في وجهك حتى وهم ميتون. ترجم يا مصعب ولا أقرأ النص الثاني؟
اقرأ النص الثاني.
أوكي. بيضة في مقلاة، فجأة تنقطع الكهرباء، تشرب الحياة كوبا من الصمت، تنهي دوامها الرسمي وتجلس كي تستريح. البيوت ترتدي ثيابها المنسية على حبال العتمة. الشبابيك صناديق البريد، ساعة الحائط تكف عن الانتظار. يمتنع الفقهاء عن الثرثرة، والشهداء يؤجلون موتهم فيما يسترخي الوقت كبيضة في مقلاة. تنقطع الكهرباء فنشم رائحة للحياة كامرأة تخرج للتو من سريرها. أكتفي بهذا القدر من النص لأنه هو الذي ترجم فقط يعني.
اوكي هلا ميوت خلينا نترجم. Okay, so Nasser read two of his poems included in this issue of the journal. The first poem is titled Letter to the Pilot Returning to the Base After Bombing Gaza. You might be taking off your heavy military helmet, smiling to those who greet you, and they might be congratulating you on a safe return from a very risky mission. But you are the only one who knows well what you have done. Shame on you. Shame on you. Spread dust over your head. Spit at your face in the mirror. Is this all what you have been taught? To fight the houses and the streets, have no missile against you, your fighter jet that flees through the planeless sky? And when you watch our children under the rubble on your TV screen, they wave their hands in victory, even when they are dead. The second poem, An Egg in a Frying Pan. Suddenly, the electricity is off, and life sips at a cup of silence, finishes its shift, and sits, rests. Houses don the clothes left on their dark lines. Windows, mailboxes, and clocks all stop waiting. Scholars refrain from chatting, martyrs postpone death, but time spreads like an egg in a frying pan. The electricity is gone off, and we smell a scent of life, like a woman just leaving her bed.
Yeah, here we go.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Shayma and to the wonderful teams of this great and wonderful team of Peripheries and Harvard University in particular. Regarding Muhamed, born in Libya in 1994, Muhamed Ashour is a Palestinian poet living in Gaza. He obtained his BA in social work from Al-Quds Open University in Gaza. Muhamed participated in the Young Writers Contest organized by the Qattan Foundation Palestine. His collection, Wounds That Lick Themselves, received a special mention by the committee and was then published by Al-Ahliya, Jordan in 2018. So we would listen to two pieces by Muhamed Ashour. So the floor is yours, Muhamed. واضح.
بالبداية شكرا جدا جامعة هارفارد على هذه الدعوة الكريمة. سعيد جدا بوجودي بين الأصدقاء في غزة وبالتلاقي مع الأصدقاء في أمريكا، وأتمنى أنه يكون لقاءنا القادم عن قرب وبدون أي مسافات. سأقرأ رسالة تم ترجمتها في المجلة مؤخرا الصادرة عن جامعة هارفارد. هي واحدة من القصص، من مئات القصص اللي ممكن توثق حجم الكارثة الإنسانية اللي وقعت على الآمنين والأفراد الآمنين في قطاع غزة أثناء الحرب. من أنس اليازجي إلى خطيبته شيماء أبو العوف والتي انتشل جثتها بعد يومين من البحث. حسناً شيماء، أحبك جداً وبعد. أنا الآن تحت القصف كما دائماً، من اللحظة التي أغلقنا فيها الهاتف منذ 3 أيام و5 صواريخ على بيت عائلتك، منذ أول بروفا لفستان العرس ومعجون الحناء، منذ آخر الكلام وطيب المقام، منذ عيد وزغاريد وجارات وصديقات ومواعيد لحفل الزفاف. منذ أول أولادنا المؤجلين وأول عنادي أقول أريد طفلا واحدا، وتقولين لا بل عشيرة. أحبك جدا، وبعد أنا الآن تحت القصف كما دائما، يدي في جيبي وعقلي في مكانه. أقول يا شيماء مرت طائرة، سقط الجرس والمئذنة، وتقولين لا بأس الصلاة صاعدة. أقول يا شيماء دمروا الأبراج، وتقولين لا بأس بقي الحمام. أقول حطموا النافذة، وتقولين أحسن أحسن، بهذا أصبح الضوء حرا. أحبك جدا. وحيث أنني الآن تحت القصف كما دائما وتحت الدمار، سيأتي التجار والفجار، وتبدأ المؤتمرات، ويفتح المزاد على البلاد وعلى ما تبقى من عباد. سيشكلون لجنة لإعادة الإعمار وإعادة الأبراج والبيوت المهدمة. وبيتنا يا حبيبتي، بيتنا الصغير الذي سويناه حجرا على حجر، ثم غرقنا في الديون والأقساط، وغرقنا في الشجار على لون الكنب ولون الحيطان. وفي أي مكان من حديقة بيتنا سنزرع شتلة العنب. ستعاد لنا الشوارع والمآذن والحدائق والكهرباء وخطوط الماء. أقول وقد توقف القصف، من يعيد لشيماء الدماء؟ شكرا. أكتفي تقريبا بهذا القدر، تقريبا استنزفت ال4 دقائق المسموح لي فيها. تفضل دكتور تيسير.
Well, from Anas al-Yaziji to his fiancée, Shayma Abu Toha, whose body he recovered after 2 days of searching. Well, Shayma, I love you too so very much and more. And again, I'm under attack. Since we hung up the telephone 3 days ago, when 5 missiles hit your family's house, since the dress rehearsal and the henna night, since our last words together, our state of happiness, since Eid and ululation, since neighbors, friends, and wedding dates, since our first postponed child and your first stubbornness, I say, I only want one. You say, no, I want a clan. I love you so much and more. And again, I'm under attack. My hand in my pocket, my mind in its place. I say, oh, Shayma, a warplane has passed by. The bell and the minaret have fallen. And you say, it's all right. The dogs remain. I say, they have smashed the window. You say, that's how lies freed. I love you so much. But now I'm under attack as always, and under rubble. Traders and bastards will come, attend conferences, auction the land and its last few survivors. From committees, reconstruct towers and rebuild ruined houses. And our house, my love, our little home, we built stone by stone before bills and debt drowned us and quarrels overwhelmed us, the color of sofas and walls. And where in our backyard, we would plant the grape seedlings. We will get back the streets, the minarets, the gardens, electricity, and water pipelines. I say, once the ceasefire takes hold, who could bring the blood back to Shayma? We will get back the streets, the minarets and yards, the electrical lines and water pipes. I say, the bombings stop, but who will restore Shayma's blood? Thank you.
Okay, now our next reader is Nyama Hasan. Nyama Hasan is a Palestinian poet and prose writer. She has a degree in counseling. Nyama is a cultural activist and she heads 2 women's literary and cultural groups in South Gaza. She has 2 novels, When Flame Danced and it wasn't death. She wrote a letter book titled Done by a Female Doer. Nyama also co-authored a fourth book titled Memory Nests. Nyama.
يسعد مساكم جميعا. شكرا لهذه الاستضافة الجميلة. وحاب إني أقرأ بالأول نص الأم في غزة. كل عام والأمهات العالم كله بخير بمناسبة يوم الأم. نص الأم في غزة. الأم في غزة لا تنام، تنصت للعتمة، تتفقد حواشيها، تفرز الأصوات صوتاً صوتاً لتنتقي لها حكاية تليق بها، تهدهد بها أطفالها، وبعد أن يغفو الجميع تقف درعاً أمام الموت. الأم في غزة لا تبكي، تجمع الخوف، الغضب والدعاء في رئتيها، وتنتظر أن ينتهي أزيز الطائرات ليتحرر الزفير. الأم في غزة ليست ككل الأمهات، تصنع الخبز بملح طازج من عينيها وتطعم أبنائها للوطن. النص الثاني: أكان العيد فخاً. أكان العيد فخاً؟ هكذا يتساءل الطفل الذي ثقب بالونه الملون. القبر الذي اتسع لأمه وإخوته الخمسة كان مليئاً بالهدايا، لكنه لم يسمح له بالعدو مع طائرته الورقية. ما زالت الطائرة في ركن الغرفة المهدم تنفض الغبار باستياء. أبي سيصلحها، قالها وهو يأوي لكفنه مطمئناً. الصغيرة التي فقدت ذراعها على سرير المشفى تفكر: هل تستطيع أن تحمل دميتها الشقراء بعد الآن؟ هل الأذرع تموت يا أمي؟ بائع الربابيكيا يحمل ما تبقى من عربة الرجل المقعد. بعد الغارة الأخيرة أصبح يجيد دفن الأشياء لا بيعها. من يجيد تغيير خطة الحرب فليرفع إصبعه الأوسط أو ليصمت. شكرا، يعطيكم العافية.
Many thanks, Nyama, for reading these two poems. In Gaza, a mother never sleeps. She listens to the dark, searches its edges, sorts out sounds, sound by sound, to select a suitable story to read her kids to sleep. When they sleep, she stands up to shield them from death. A mother in Gaza does not cry. She folds up fear, rage, and prayers in her lungs and waits for the hum of warplanes to fade, then exhales. A mother in Gaza is not like other mothers. She bakes bread with her own eyes solved. She feeds her children to the homeland. The second poem is Was Eid a Trap? Eid means feast. Was Eid a trap? Wonders the child whose balloons just popped. The grave where he rests with his mother and 5 siblings brims with gifts. But he can't run along with the kite. It's crumbling in the room's crumpling corner, still shuddering off the dust. Dad's going to fix it, he's certain, as he heads to bed, his coffin. The girl in the hospital cot who lost an arm wonders, can I still hold my blown toy? And is it true arms can die too, my mom? The junk seller carries off the wheelchair's remains. After the last airstrike, he excels at burying his wares, does not sell them. Who excels at altering the war plan? Raise a middle finger or shut up.
Here we go. So Waleed Al-Akkad, born in 1992, Waleed Al-Akkad is Palestinian poet and short story writer from Gaza. He graduated from Palestine University with a degree in media. Walid occasionally writes plays. As an undergraduate, he won the drama contest at Palestine University. So now the floor is yours, Waleed.
مرحبا بالعافية. بشكر جميع القائدين على هاي الفعالية وأتمنى أن يسود السلام أنحاء العالم. أبدأ قصيدتي. يلعب الجنود مع الأطفال لعبة الغميضة. الأطفال يختبئون والجنود يخرجونهم بالقذائف. لم تكن أغصان عظامنا المتناثرة فوق الخزان. لم تكن زوبعة أو إعصار، كان انفجارا واحدا أحرق كل شيء. بعد قذيفة مجهولة سكت طائر الحسون إلى الأبد. كنا تحت النار نحزن مع خوفنا أن يسقط الموت فوق رؤوسنا. سقف فوق سقف، هكذا نعرف البيوت من رائحة الحزن وألوان الشبابيك ورسائل الحب الذابلة. تلتحم البيوت مع أصحابها، الجسد مع الجدار، العظام مع الحديد، الطين مع الدم، الذاكرة مع الموت. نجمع صرخاتنا كلها، نحشرها بأفواهنا المبحوحة خشية أن يسمعنا الموت. تحب الرصاصة مداعبتنا، تلعق بلسانها صدورنا، وعندما تصل إلى النشوة تنتفض على قلوبنا. انقلبت أيامنا خوف، فرحتنا التي كنا نسميها عيد تلاشت. كان الجندي يستمتع بقتل الأطفال كأنه يقدم هدية عيد ميلاد لابنته، ولأننا بنظره أولاد هباء كان لا يترك الزناد إلا لحك مؤخرته. شكرا.
Thank you, Waleed. Thank you so much. Before reading this poem, I would like to say something quite interesting. When I got to translate this piece, it resonates somehow with a saying with Nietzsche when he said, every name in history has a metaphysical eye. It's a kind of metaphysical and subjective eye that is impossible to be translated, but I did my best to render this piece into English and to do justice to the original text. Soldiers play hide and seek with children. Children hide, soldiers draw them out with bombs. They weren't branches, our bones, scattered over the water tank. They weren't whirlwind nor tornado. Everything's been burned up in one blast. After an anonymous shell, the tender bird silent forever. Under fire, we sat sad with fear. That death might fall over our heads, one roof above another roof. That's how we knew houses, by the smell of their grief, by the colors of windows, and all their ashen love letters, houses welded to their dwellers, a body to a wall, bones to iron, mud to blood, memory to death. Gather up our screams, all of them. Hide them in hoarse voices, or death will hear us. The bullet wants to flirt with me. Her tongue licks my chest. And when she reaches a climax, she pulls out my heart. The day we call Eid disperses into void, fearful void. The soldier once enjoyed killing children as if giving a Christmas gift to his daughter. Now he looks down, and in his eyes we are unworthy. So he doesn't release his trigger, but stops to scratch his ass. Thank you.
Okay, so now our next reader is Tayseer Abu Odeh himself. Tayseer is a writer and a translator from Jordan. He is currently an assistant professor of comparative literature at Amman Al-Ahliya. University in Jordan. He received his PhD from Indiana University of Pennsylvania in 2016. From 2008 onward, Abu Odeh has been a permanent fellow of the Tokyo Foundation for Policy Research. He's also a section editor for post-colonial texts and a member of the International Advisory Board of the Journal of Holy Land and Palestine Studies at Edinburgh University. His latest book is titled The Consolations of Exile. It was published in 2019.
Well, thank you, Mosab. Thank you so much. I will just pick two pieces. One entitled Mourning. 39 times I came to my life, each time carrying my mother's stories, her stoic smile, her pain too. 39 times I experienced my private tragedy. Still, it stranges me. 39 times I put on my exile. Unlike neighbors, I never found my birthplace. I grew up a stranger at home. I carried Jerusalem's map on my shoulder. I waited for silence to speak. I began to narrate my story, but scars aren't meant to talk. For 39 years, I inherited my father's wounds. I forgot his words, but they sprouted beneath my skin. Like fungi grows in my body and soul, and my mourning flowers in the backyard. And now, after 39 autumns, I'm a stranger to myself, a stranger to my childhood memories. It's bitter groaning. I write my forgetfulness on the wall of history, in my rose-colored blood, with a lantern in my hand. And the last piece I want to read is dedicated to Gaza, from a lullaby from Gaza. We've inherited ancient cores. We count martyrs, we count wounds. How many amputated legs? We record wrecked ships, buried dreams, and murdered goats. We survey slaughtered olive groves, count out our sleeping pills. We store memories in the attic of Arabic and stand in the rubble at dawn. We recall lullabies. We rename chrysanthemum, rename cities and citadels. We take the ally to what ends? We say every poem is a ladder up to the gates of Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you, Tayseer, very much. Now it's my turn to read. I'm going to read the 3 poems that I contributed to this special folio. The 3 poems are included in my forthcoming book, which is published by City Lights in April this year. So it's just a few weeks from now. The first poem is My City After What Happened Some Time Ago. The noose is tightening around the city's neck. Looters undress the city, sell its clothes and jewelry to the monsters in the sea. Trees, bare and heads down, blow their yellow leaves, try to cover the house's private parts. Bathtubs filled with warm water for the new bride and groom. In the stall, they sell a photo of my young grandmother. They didn't know she began to smoke when she got older. I wished I had a cigarette with me to put near the frame. I once tried to light a cigarette and smoke. I burned my finger and never tried again. My grandfather's cane leans against a dusty wall near my young father's school bag. 2 men hurriedly grab the books piled up below the stall, buy them for the first price the seller announces. Their hands vomit them into the sea close by. The words' eyes turn red with salt. The maps overdrink, and water seeps through their bellies. The city no longer exists, but in the holes in the earth. Nowhere I have to go but to a new untrodden road. Silence of water. Fathers typing on keyboard, mothers reading a morning newspaper aloud to cover neighbor's radio sound. Air from cracked windows sliding on ceiling lamp. Fly is losing balance sometimes. Black and white pictures on walls are searching for colors at night. Kettle on stove. One big drop powers down on roof. No lightning, no thunder, no clouds. It rains only on this house. Dust and concrete stuff noses of neighborhood. Water on stove, no longer boils. Shrapnel has cut its throat. The last poem is In the War, You and Houses. You fight, you die. You never know who won or lost, or if the war ever ended. When the bomb fell, the shrapnel cut your body's clothes, your flesh. It cut your country's flag, its landscape. They didn't find a place to bury you. They carried you on their shoulders, wandered in the neighborhood, stopped at your child's school and the old park. Everything saw you, except for the houses. Houses have packed their bags. Dust has erected a tent in the angles. Rust has landed with its worn-out clothes on the tab and on the spoon. It steals from the water its soft slide, whereas the air sleeps on the spoon's rough air, while you sleep on moving sand.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I want to thank all the readers, but especially Mosab, especially Tayseer, for all the work they did in putting this folio together. It was, as I said, that absolutely unbelievable time of May last year that we were all communicating with one another what we were going to publish, how we were going to translate it. And they dealt with each poet so sensitively and with such passion. There was one poet didn't get to speak because I believe she has COVID. So we do have a little time for questions. I don't see any yet, and it's hard. I mean, I was thinking of what question I could possibly ask now. It's difficult after those poems, especially to have a discussion. I would very much welcome hearing Mosab or Tayseer speak a little bit about the importance of poetry from Gaza. I know that at times poets can feel some like what is the point of writing a poem right now? What format, what good does the format of poetry do? And I know that Mosab, when we were having these kind of conversations, I think you spoke elegantly about this. If you'd like to talk to that question, and I'll watch and see if a few people have questions.
Yeah,
you have a 10-minute discussion.
Okay, good. Thank you again for hosting us and for giving us the opportunity to put our work in this special folio. I'd like to talk about a little bit about the difficulty that we in Gaza face when it comes to getting books from abroad. So Gaza is under siege. It has been under siege since 2007. It has been under occupation since 1948. So it's nearly very, very difficult for us to leave Gaza. And not only leaving Gaza is very difficult, but it's also very difficult to come back to it because of the continuing closure of the border crossing, whether between Gaza and Israel or Gaza and Egypt. So for example, when I wanted to return to Gaza, when I was in the States last year, I faced many difficulties in returning to Gaza because no one knew or had known when the border crossing will be open. And even we don't have an embassy in America for me to reach out to and ask such questions. So it was very terrible for me, and I felt very anxious and very worried about the timing of my return, when to, for example, when to book a flight back to Egypt, and whether I was allowed to stay in Egypt for a few days before the crossing border opens. So this kind of question. So it's not only about us as people, but it's also about books. So for example, last time Tayseer, who is the co-editor of this special folio with me, so he sent me his book, to which I referred in his introduction. So he lives in Amman in Jordan, just 4 hours by car from Gaza. So he sent the book by DHL from Amman to Gaza. So the book went on a journey. So the book went from Amman to Dubai in the Emirates, United Arab Emirates. And from Dubai, the book went to Frankfurt in Germany. And then the book traveled from Frankfurt in Germany to Tel Aviv, and from Tel Aviv to Gaza. So you can imagine how very very indirect our lives go forward. So this is just one example of the difficulties that we in Gaza face. And the same thing happened to the magazine, to the journal that we received in Gaza. It took about 6 or 7 weeks for the journalists to come to Gaza, and it's even not very easy to track any shipment that's coming to Gaza. I think we have some questions here.
Yeah, maybe I'll just read a question that we've just been asked. So everything you have just said, this is from Sam Galanon. Everything you have just said, both the poems themselves and your commentary on them, bear witness to the incredible difficulty of the circumstances in which you are living. Could you comment on the way in which this affects your creative process? How do you keep focused and stay productive? Or on the other hand, is this difficulty instead the source of your motivation and energy to write and produce art? You can also translate it to Arabic for our other poets if you want, Mosab.
سؤال يا شباب، السؤال يعني إذا حدا حاب يجاوب كيف إنه إحنا في غزة ممكن نكتب في ظل ظروف قاهرة جدا. هل ممكن نعلق على هذه الآثار على عمليتنا الإبداعية، وكيف نبقى مركزين ونبقى مبدعين في ظل هذه الظروف؟ هل هذه الصعوبة ممكن تكون أحد مصادر الإبداع والطاقة التي تجعلنا نكتب بشكل إبداعي؟ إذا حد حابب يجاوب ممكن يتكلم. I can answer in the meanwhile until someone. Do you want to speak, Tayseer?
Yes, I would like to add something relevant to your response and your comment, Mosab, and to the question just raised. First of all, I wouldn't pretend that I can put myself in your shoes, guys. I'm literally out of place. I haven't been to Gaza, but I just can't imagine. And writing would give me the chance, would give me the forum in order just to imagine how people of Gaza look like and what kind of, siege is inflicted on every single person in Gaza. But honestly, just grappling with this question, what can poetry do in the time of catastrophe? A question raised by Darwish, raised by Waleed Al-Akkad, and many other writers. So how to create and forge a kind of sense and meaning out of this, chaos, out of this very crazy situation, and especially when it comes to the catastrophe that is befalling people in Gaza. At the same time, the sense of denial. This is one of the most central things ever when it comes to the whole question of Palestine. But still some people believe or know nothing about what's going on the ground. So poetry for me basically is a forum, is a window through which I can at least flesh out my own catastrophe, and at the same time create a sense of solidarity. But I wouldn't go so utopian, because poetry is part of literature. We can't change reality, but at least we can create a cultural space, a cultural site for resistance. And this is one of the most powerful things ever when it comes to the cultural hegemony for Palestinian people. And absolutely, following that paradigm, I would say it's extremely important to keep in mind how significant writing looks like, how timely it is. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I would like to add by saying that the circumstances that we are experiencing every day on a daily basis in Gaza is sometimes a drive for us to write, because to write your feelings is something that you can use as a way of healing. So when I write about what I'm seeing or what I'm feeling, it's a way for me to understand why I'm thinking in this way or in that way. It's a way for me to record for the people around me or the people who will be born after me that this is how we lived. It's a kind of documentation. And on the other side, writing about other people's lives is something that I feel mandatory, because these people who died under the rubble of their houses, just the poem that Hamed wrote about Shayma Abu Toha, who was killed under the rubble of her house. So Hamed was trying to revive this girl. He was trying to imagine her while she is under the rubble. So we are giving life to people who died. We are imagining how they died, what they were feeling before they left us in this world. So writing is a creative process, but sometimes you do not sometimes choose to write. It's a call. It tells you, please write me, please describe, please feel for us, tell us how you feel. It's a call, and we feel that we need to write because it's something that we need to do, to share with other people how we feel. And it's also for us. I sometimes write for myself, and sometimes I write for my son, who will grow up one day, and I will share my books and my poems with him, so he will see what he was doing as a kid. So I'm not all the time writing about wars. I'm writing about my family. I'm writing about the garden. I'm writing about the sunset. So it's part of our lives in Gaza, to try to keep what we are seeing in our lives by way of words. Do you have other questions?
There is a question that's probably important to ask is, Waleed Al-Akkad, what advice do you have for Palestinian writers? It's probably important to give some advice, encouragement.
Okay. Well, I think connecting with other people outside, because in Gaza, we live under siege, we live under occupation. It's not very usual to see a foreigner in Gaza, except if he or she is a foreigner, if he or she is a journalist or a human rights activist. So you do not usually see tourists in Gaza for you to speak to or share your experiences with. So I think social media is giving us a space to connect with other people who might be interested in our work. So having a circle of friends who are interested in your area of artistic creativity, such as poets, such as essayists, such as artists. So I think this is good advice, to be in touch with other people outside, because if it wasn't for me connecting with other people outside Gaza, I wouldn't be able to connect with the journal or with the University of Harvard or with my publisher. So keeping in touch with people outside and sharing your work, sharing your work and just letting the word out, and someone will hear it and they will say, okay, you are speaking well, we need to hear more.
Tayseer, do you have advice for people living in exile?
That's a difficult question for me in particular, especially I wouldn't imagine myself as someone who's given advice for people. But in response to that question, I would say the following. The best way to, just make our cause and make our catastrophe circulated across the globe is to particularize our catastrophe and universalize it at the same time. The best way to do that is to, as Mosab said, is to narrate our story. We're not, most of the time, sometimes people are waiting for someone else to write his story, and that sounds very contradictory. So I think following Edward Said's piece of advice, the permission to narrate, we have the capacity to narrate our stories and to keep narrating our stories and not to get, tired of narrating the same story again and again. But of course, I think it's enough of what we call the rhetoric of victimization. And what I find very interesting about the pieces that I translated, most of them related to something very mundane. It has to do to the everyday lives, the local lives of Palestinian people living under siege. And it conveys something very peculiar about their, inner lives, what we call a dakhil Palestine. So this the inside of Palestine is truly worth narrating and fleshing out at the same time by artists, by writers, by poets. So the best thing to do is to keep holding on to the process of writing.
If I may say something, I've just had the chance to see Elaine's question about Ukraine and Russia. I think it's very sickening to see the Western reaction to the Russian invasion in Ukraine, while not paying much attention to the siege and the bloodshed that takes place every day in the West Bank and in Gaza. Yesterday I was just watching the match between Barcelona and Real Madrid in the Spanish Football League. There was that caption, "Stop invasion." But no one, it never happened that the European official sides, or whether in football or in economics, etc., had said anything to do with Gaza or the West Bank or Syria or in other Arab countries, or maybe third world countries, as they call it. It's really disappointing to see that there is blood that is more precious than other blood. I'm really very disappointed, and I think it's unfair and it's inhuman to watch this double standards that's used by many European countries.
May I say something just in response to Mosab's point as far as the discourse of oblivion is concerned? I guess I just remember a brilliant quotation of Adorno that has to do with the idea of articulating our suffering. So your suffering is not that unique sometimes, but at the same time, you feel that you want to make your suffering written, or you make your suffering circulated, or you make. So the best thing to do is, as Adorno said, is to let suffering speak. And I think the best thing to let our suffering speak is through art, is through all of these spaces of literature and of course culture. But again and again, I believe strongly that multiple generations or young generations of Palestine are capable to make this suffering and to make their cause alive every now and then.
Yeah, one last word for me. I very much hope that the war in Ukraine comes to an end, because I know what it means to be under attack, under military attacks. I hope peace will dominate the world, although it's very unlikely that it will be the case. But I hope that no more blood would be shed, whether in Europe or in Asia or in Africa, because God just created us and no one has the right to end any life.
This is ending on a prayer, which feels appropriate. So let me just close by thanking you both, and we're going to keep up with your careers and your poetry, and we're going to keep reading what you write. And so just taking this moment from everyone from the audience, from Center for the Study of World Religions, from Harvard Divinity School, and from Peripheries, just to really thank you for your words and your time and for sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Shayma. Thank you.
Thank you.
طيب كيف شباب يعطيكم العافية جميعا.
Sponsors: Center for the Study of World Religions, Grolier Poetry Bookshop.
Copyright 2022, the President and Fellows of Harvard College.